welcome to my podcast on real relationships. My name is Sophie Passon and I am a relationship expert, international speaker and best-selling author of the book Your Other Half. I decided to start this podcast because in my opinion, relationships are currently not being portrayed as what they really are. Whether you're watching the news, TV or social media, the perception given to people is wrong. And my aim is to talk about what happens in the real world, talk about real stories and listen to what real people think, do or go through, as opposed to creating expectations of something that doesn't actually exist. I may not agree with everything that is said by my guests, but it is their chance to express their opinions and their stories. And here today we have Julie Maron, and we're going to talk about her journey to a happy marriage, but that started with losing her first two husbands to suicide on exactly the same day as well. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Okay, I'm now 58. I've got three wonderful children. I've always worked all my life in the charity sector, worked many years with rough sleepers, and then people who were victims of domestic violence. I think I've had quite a good career from that. Now I work part-time. I'm also a cake decorator, which is the love of my life after my current husband and family.
Okay, so let's go back to your relationship story, shall we say. So tell us about your first husband.
Okay, I met my first husband, probably it was 1983. I'd have been 19 or 20. And we met at a party, a mutual friend's party. He was a nurse and quite into management, was quite high up, was earning good salary and things. And I thought he was my absolute Prince Charming. To my parents' dismay, we got married. My mum and dad didn't want me to marry him. They thought he was a bit of a charmer, but I wasn't having any of that. So off I went to live in the happily ever after, which didn't quite work out. And I got I was assaulted for the first time 6 weeks after we got married. And that led on to 3 years of pretty persistent abuse and assaults.
Was it physical assaults?
Yeah, physical, and mental, and a lot of coercive control. If you do this, I'll do that kind of thing. I can remember one time I was going into hospital because my second pregnancy wasn't going very well. And he was telling me that if I went in, he would leave my son on his own and go wherever. And he was saying to the nurse on the other line, because he was a nurse himself, he was saying to the nurse, I'm trying to talk Julie into coming, but she just won't come. I don't know how to get her there. So there was this kind of real battle going on.
Well, how were you feeling at the time? Because obviously, that's not quite the fairy tale you signed up for, is it?
No, I felt absolutely dreadful, but I'm quite a stubborn person, I guess, or strong-willed. I'm not sure what you'd call it, but I felt at that stage I couldn't tell my parents I'd failed. It was all a big failure and it was awful. So I think you get on with things, and I think that he made it very difficult for me to tell anybody. There were all sorts of threats and things that would happen to me if I told anyone what was going on. After I had my second child, which would have been September 87, I was really very depressed. And I wrote a letter to the health visitor to say that I needed to leave home, that I just needed to get away, and that I was frightened about leaving. And he found it. And the guy had never been through my bag before, as far as I'd known, but he found the letter, and that caused a lot of problems. So one day while he was asleep, literally, I packed up the pram, poured all the milk away down the sink for babies' feeds and things, told him I had to go and get some baby's milk, and I ran with my two kids to my mum and dad.
Right.
Months later, so every day after that, once I'd left him and he knew that was it was over, done. I was never going back. I had quite a protective dad, brother. I wasn't going to go back in. I was covered in bruises. He would phone every day and say to me, if you don't hear from me within 24 hours, I'll have committed suicide, I'll have done it. And my parting words were, just get on with it, because after 6 weeks, I think it was something like that. It was just before Christmas that I left. and he actually committed suicide on the 20th of February.
Right.
So that was, and that was him. And I think, you know, out of that, I got two beautiful children who are still beautiful children. They're wonderful. And at probably what, 26, a whole heap of issues that I never realized that I'd even had in what attracted me to somebody, why I thought they were a good person to marry. So I went in for 3 years of psychotherapy.
And how did the actual suicide affect you? I mean, did you, obviously there might have been an element of guilt, and also do you think that he attempted it in order to make you see that he was serious and didn't mean to succeed, or
Yeah,
what went through your head?
My GP felt that he had very much a game had backfired on him.
Yeah.
And that he hadn't realized probably how unhealthy he was. What came out from all of it was the fact that once he had died, my doctor told me that he had been diagnosed some years earlier as a psychopath, as having a psychopathic personality, which of course made everything fit together.
Yeah.
But they don't tell you that while the person's alive, and that you get out and leave. I didn't feel guilty at all, actually. I felt very sad and very angry that I'd allowed myself to get into such a difficult situation. And if I'm honest, Sophie, by the time we got there, I couldn't find one good reason why he should be alive. Really sad for a life. I mean, he was really doing very well, top management in nursing, and did a wonderful job. And outside of the house was this truly amazing bloke. And inside was a complete and utter monster. So that was that. I then had my two young children, quite happily bumbling along, and happened to meet a guy that I'd known through other people for a long time. Really lovely man, really gentle, really sweet. And I think for me at that time, that was something that I needed. I needed sweet and gentle. And in some ways, I think I needed then to control the situation more, because I was never going to end up in a situation like I'd been in. And he was lovely. He had suffered with depression before, but I think we had 7 really, really lovely, happy years until out of the blue, we had another child. So I've got 3 lads. And then out of the blue one day, he just said to me, I don't think I can be part of a family anymore. I just can't cope with the energy that the kids have, and, you know, the demands and responsibilities. I don't want to do it anymore.
Were you married to him as well?
Yeah, we got married.
Yeah.
What kind of transpired from that then was that he wanted to be alone, have some time on his own. So he went and lived in a house that a friend made available for him. I spoke to him every day. I wasn't really ready at that point for our marriage to end. I thought we could get back there, but it had become really apparent to me that I'd become his mother.
Okay. So really looking after him. And
that I'd been looking after him, and there was a real kind of like, I was the one that was working, he was at home. It was, there was a real kind of mismatch of energy going on, if you like. And then he must have been 3 or 4 months that we were in contact every day.
Living apart.
Yeah, living apart. And then I said to him, the week of the 20th, so my first husband was found dead, pronounced dead on the 20th of February, 1988. This was the week of the 20th of February, 1998. And I just happened to mention to my husband at that time, I didn't consider him an ex really, that, you know, Richard had been dead for 10 years. And my husband was found on the 20th of February, 1998, dead.
So you obviously think that he chose that date on purpose?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Did you know that he was that low, that he would commit suicide, or was it a shock?
No, and I get a little bit upset, because if I'd have known things were that bad, I would have tried to help him, but he never said. What I saw was lethargy, laziness. You know, everything was boring. No energy with the children. No affection.
Which is kind of what he said to you about that he just wanted to be alone.
Exactly.
He didn't say he was depressed, so to speak.
Nothing at all. No, nothing. And so, yeah, if I have a regret, I don't have many regrets in my life, but one of them is that I didn't realise that he was so depressed. And I think we go about our daily life. Life was busy, 3 young children, a full-time job.
It can be easy to miss the signs.
Absolutely. I just thought, he was just like boring, quite frankly. I thought, I must admit, I used to look at him and think, if we got another 30 years like this, we're going to have to do something. But didn't realise that it was actually probably because he was really so depressed. So, and he committed suicide on 10 years to the day. So that was really, really sad. I think that we had 7 really happy years together, and why he did it on the same day, I will never know. But what that did do is make me feel completely toxic and poisonous.
And may I say, suspicious?
Yeah, please. I was investigated by the police, obviously. The first thing I said to the police when my second husband was found was, this has happened to me before. And it was only for about 4 or 5 days of looking into what I was doing. And I think the police were, I actually think they were really good and really thorough. And of course, there was nothing to come back. There was no foul play at all, really. In fact, there were hundreds of messages on his answer phone from me. Please pick up the phone. I know you're there, because we'd seen a light on in the window as I'd driven by and things. So no, yeah, I did feel suspicious. I felt pretty darn awful. And I felt awful for quite a while.
Yeah, did you feel that maybe you brought that on, or as it were? Because that's, something that so many weird things go through our minds where things, I'm not even saying things like that happen, because luckily it doesn't happen to that many people. But do you know what I mean? There's so many things that can go through our minds.
It is a bit hard when the guy from Cruise, which is a bereavement counselling service, turned up. And his first words were, I've never heard of this happening before. So I felt like I had a big kind of wart on the end of my nose anyway. But yeah, I felt very toxic. I felt like there was something wrong with me that meant I couldn't hold down a relationship, let alone keep them alive, keep somebody alive. I mean, it's pretty big. And although now I can talk about it really quite openly, it's not something that bothers me so much now. At that time, I think, I went into wearing black all the time so that nobody'd see me. Quite a lot of really disruptive and destructive behaviour about myself.
The problem as well is that because people are so judgmental, you would, straight away, it's not a story that you want to kind of come out with that easily, because you're going to think that you're going to point the finger, the gossip around that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there was a lot of gossip. Actually, there was a lot of gossip. I'm quite a little toughie in that I was able to rise above some of that, because I am somebody that just won't put up with other people's shit. I don't need, I'm not a gossip myself. I don't like it. But I guess if anything, I became quite shocking and quite awkward for some people, and would really kind of like front them out if somebody had been saying something. I was angry. I was really angry that I'd ended up with this situation. I was really sad, so sad about my second husband dying.
As you said, to you weren't separated or anything. To you were still together. Yeah. It was just taking a bit of time out.
Yeah, absolutely. And when, it was really strange, because when we went to the house when he died, he had packed everything up, the whole house, his whole house that he was staying in. So it's obviously something that he had been thinking about for a while. He'd had my kid, he had the children for half term. It was just really, really bizarre. The police always said that they felt 2 schools of thought. One was that he'd done it deliberately on the day, and others were that it was completely random coincidence, because it was so awful, somebody wouldn't have planned to do that on that day, but who knows. So moving on from there, I guess, after a couple of years, I'd calmed down. I loved looking after my children. They have been the absolute light of my life.
And actually, talking of that, how did they take it?
Well, none of them have got married, so I guess
Right.
that's. I mean, they're all
That's a sign, yeah.
yeah, they're all grown up now. One's 34, one's 32, and one's 29. Yeah, they're not. My eldest son, they're all adorable. My eldest son is wandering around the country most of the time. He organises music festivals. He's kind of like a bit of nomadic. My other son is always looking for the what do we call it? He's always looking for the one.
Yeah.
One, you know. He thinks he might have found the one now, but you know, we're just not quite sure. And my youngest son has had some mental health problems. So whilst part of that is funny, because I kind of think they're never going to get married, are they? They're just never going to do it. I can't imagine. I think, bless them, they've had a hard time. Yeah, they've had a hard time.
It can't have been easy,
No,
especially I mean, first of all, they all lost their dad, but the first two obviously also lost their stepdad, in essence.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 2 of them.
Yeah, exactly. So, but they've been very good. And when I'm now really, really happily married, and I've been with my current partner for 20 years. Of course, when I started seeing him, the boys were really skeptical, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Kind of like was never their dad, just was a friend in the house. And
how did you broach the subject, so to speak, to him?
Well, I didn't. It was a friend of mine that did.
Okay.
And said to him, he was here. We'd only been seeing each other very recently. And my friend said to him, do you know what's happened to Julie? And he said, no. So she said, well, I think I need to tell you that, you know, you're sitting next to the Black Widow here because this has happened. And bless him, he just said, well, you know, I like living life on the edge. We'll just see how it goes. And 20 years later, we are still together. And this relationship was always going to be the one that would never last. I was just going to have a bit of fun.
Yeah.
You know, I needed a bit of feeling about myself, a bit of company. And after 10 years, so when it got we talked about getting married quite often. But I was like, no, I'm not doing it again. I'm never doing it again. And then it got to, well, maybe if we get past 2008 and you're still alive, if you're alive on the 21st of February, 2008, maybe we think about it. And we got married in June 2008.
Right, okay.
And my team that I worked with at work, we're a very close team, they all took me out on the 20th of February 2008. They all took me out for a Thank God John's Alive party.
Oh, God. I suppose you kind of got a sense of humour.
It became a really big thing, let me tell you. 2008 became a really big thing for me. I guess that's how you bring that kind of like baggage with you, don't you? Even unspoken, even unacknowledged. And I used to say to him, well, let's just see if you're here, 20th of February 2008. And as I say, we got married in the June, which was, lovely. Been together ever since, really, really happy. I don't think I've been easy for him at all. I think he's been pretty amazing with all the shit I've brought with me. Yeah. My kids love him now, think he's amazing. So yeah, really, really happy.
So why do you think it worked when on the face of it, it was not supposed to, it was only supposed to be a bit of fun?
Maybe that's why.
Bit lack of pressure.
I had no agenda at all. It was just about me having a nice time. And I think probably for him, he was coming out, he'd come out of a really quality marriage. I don't think when you get to 35, many people have not had some past. He'd come out of a really quality marriage. And I think that we were both in it for the same reason. So there was nothing complicated. And it just worked. And I think by the time the things start to get complicated, as they do in any relationship, we already had a really good foundation of being friends, of having had a laugh, knowing how to laugh, and made life so much easier, I think, in settling down.
And I think that's often the problem anyway, when you start seeing somebody. So many people put too much pressure on themselves. They start overthinking, there's conditions, we must do this, we must do that. Where if you take it for what it is, without really thinking any further than the end of your nose, you're more likely to develop the true, as you say, friendship and having a laugh and actually enjoying the process.
I think you're right. And I think that having had the two commit suicide and it being such a kind of visceral way to end something, it's really awful. I think for my relationship with my current husband, when it started, I didn't want any trappings, none at all. I couldn't cope with any kind of boundary stuff. I was going to do exactly what I wanted to do. And also I'd been alone for a while with my kids, so I was doing what I wanted to do. And he was up for that. But like you say, there were no conditions, there were no kind of boundaries. And I was quite complicated. I think I am quite a complicated person, and I think that comes from what's gone on in my past. But he is just lovely, and he's really been able to help me through some of that, really support me through some of that crap. So yeah, it's been good.
If you look back at your life, how would you say you've grown thanks to these experiences to a degree, or despite of these experiences?
Probably both.
Yeah.
I think that I think I said to you, I don't have many regrets, if any, apart from the one that I didn't realise my second husband was depressed. But apart from that, I think we are what we've been through, aren't we? And so, yeah, I do think I've brought some of those things with me. I think that the impact of that has been that, like for my children, maybe they're looking themselves for a really strong woman, because I'm a really strong woman. I had to be strong. And so that's quite a tall order for any other women that they're looking for, because it's only just been me and them. So they've never had a father, if you like, or even a dad. I mean, John has always been a parenty, but he's never been their father or stepdad, never into that kind of role. So I think that what's impacted on me has then impacted on them. I can't say it hasn't. But I think, we are, I think to some extent, we are what we make ourselves. We are what we bring with us from our past and our childhood. And I think that if we can come out of that and live a life that is somewhat settled and happy, content, I'm not wealthy, but I do the things I like to do, then I think, I'm all right.
And I think this is it. We all have things happen, some worse than others, and we all take them on different levels. So someone is going to have something that you might class as minor, we see it as the biggest mountain without to like climb.
Yeah.
But it's also the choice, isn't it, of wanting to face it on or actually, oh, poor me. Because I mean, before recording this, we had a chat and you said about papers getting hold of the story because you wanted something juicy. Well, that's not in itself easy to deal with.
No, it wasn't. And it wasn't easy for my children to deal with at all. No. And I mean, they were at school, but they were quite young. And I think that, things get into the school playground that shouldn't. And that was really, really tough to deal with, really tough. And I do think that myself, and particularly my eldest son, not so much the others, but can be a little bit judgmental actually about other people's issues, because I hear myself think a lot of the time, is that really all you're worried about? Is that really what your issue is? And my son, I was saying, my son did a test and it said he was one of the least empathic people. Out of 100 people on his personality test, he was the least empathetic. And I said to him, why do you think that is? He said, because nobody can match what I've been through, Mum. So I just don't feel that level of sympathy with people that are moaning because they've only got 20 quid in their pocket. So it's really interesting that these things do shape us and bring us to where we are and who we are right now. But I'm okay, and he's okay. We're okay. Yeah, we're okay.
And in terms of, obviously we discussed the beginning of your relationship with your current husband.
Yeah.
And the lack of pressure, blah, blah, blah. But what do you think made it last this long?
I think probably we were a better match.
Yeah.
We're both quite colourful. And we both like to have fun. We've got it's been much more equal. I think in my first relationship, it was very much about being a victim or a survivor or whatever you want to call that. In my second relationship, it was very much about me being the boss. And I think almost I had to go through those processes to get where I then got to. I was happy that we're equals. I think that we have a lot of respect for one another. I think we talk a lot about things. I mean, my husband's just been through horrendous time with lung cancer, and he's cancer-free at the moment. And, you know, that's really brought us together even more, I think, having gone through that together. So yeah, I think it's just about respect, the truth, and being honest, communicating.
Yeah, I think the honesty is, you know, and it's not just the obvious honesty. It's sometimes just saying how we feel as opposed to expecting the person to guess.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I think I don't think we overtalk things at all. I just think we have to blend a family. He's got a daughter, lovely daughter. We've actually been through some really complex issues, but we seem to have managed it. And I think that has been about mutual respect, honesty, communication.
Yeah,
I really do. And I'm really fortunate. What I do think is, for all the shit that went on before, I am really fortunate that I had another opportunity. Because I think by then, at that time when we met, the last thing I ever wanted was a relationship with anyone, because I just felt that I wasn't prepared to take the risk, really. So it just came naturally, organically, as it kind of grew. It was slow to start and then just grew. And so I'm glad I let myself do it.
Yeah. Take a risk, so to speak.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Unfortunately, we're getting towards the end of our time together, but what would be your best tip for someone who's not necessarily going through the same thing, but going through a rough time, shall we say?
Oh, my top tip, I guess, is hang on in there. Don't stop believing that there's something at the other end of something, whatever that is. Because I think that what does make us keep going, what does make us carry on, I think for me, it was the belief that, you know, I am an optimist. My glass is half full all the time. And I thought things have got to be better than this.
Yeah.
After the trauma, of course, you know, whilst you're in it, aren't you? We have to look back. And I think, I think for me, things have been better than I thought they would be. Better than I thought they ever could be back in whatever year, 1999. So I think my top tip is hang on in there, because I think it does get better if you let it.
Yes, there's that as well. Well, Julie, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. And for everybody else, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, then please subscribe, leave us a review, but more importantly, come back for our next episode. Thank you.